Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report. This is the space where we bring you Black America's headline news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Romeo is back. Hello, welcome back. I'm Brooke.
We're all happy that you're back, Romeo. I'm Demi, and Yale is out today.
Coming up on today's show, closing arguments begin in the trial of former police officer Kim Potter. Also, breakthrough cases of COVID-19 on Capitol Hill.
The NFL, NBA, and NHL have all been affected by the new Omicron variant. The Build Back Better plan has opposition that will prevent the legislation from passing. Anti-protest laws have been proposed in several states that may put protesters in danger.
Soulmates, we have all that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth. So let's get it.
Good evening, Soulmates. Thank you for joining us this Monday. Closing arguments have wrapped, and the jury is now deliberating in the trial of Kim Potter. The former Minnesota police officer from Brooklyn City is charged with manslaughter in the shooting death of Daunte Wright. Last week, Potter testified the shooting was unintentional and she confused her gun for her taser. Now, testimony lasted 8 days. The first-degree manslaughter charge requires the prosecution to prove Potter acted recklessly. Okay, the second-degree charge requires them to prove culpable negligence. Proof that she intended to kill is not actually needed for either of these two charges. If convicted, she faces up to 15 years in prison. So, you know, what's most, I think, interesting and what people have been sitting down on and focusing on is that she testified in her own defense, something that we didn't see, obviously, just down the road in the case of Derek Chauvin. He did not testify, which is completely his right. He didn't testify. In this, just the entire trial is her overwhelmingly saying that this was an accident. And the thing is, we've seen this before, right? So we've seen this before. We've seen an officer say, I meant to grab my taser. We saw that actually here in California with Oscar Grant. The officer was sentenced to 2 years in prison, you'll remember, saying at the is it the BART station? Yes, saying that he thought he was pulling his taser and he pulled his gun, he shot and killed Oscar Grant in the back. And we've also seen officers say, I thought someone had a gun, but they had a phone. I was mistaken. So, you know, there's a larger question happening here as far as what are the rules? You know what I mean? Like the responsibility. So it's gone from a big question of I feared for my life. And then sometimes there's a question of I was mistaken about which weapon I was choosing. I was mistaken about a weapon that I saw. But when someone ends up dead, people want more, right? And then also on the same hand, people are frustrated because they don't want someone to go to prison for 15 years for a mistake. It just gets sticky when that mistake causes someone to lose their life.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Demi.
Well, you know, Brooke, great points, but I hope that there's no one out there right now that feels sorry for this woman because, and I didn't mean to be so rude to call her this woman so there's this new video that's emerging, that's online right now, of a death that she was involved in as a police officer 2 years ago. His name is Kobe Dimmock Heisler, and his mom has been speaking out recently, saying that he was on the autism spectrum. I forgot his age. I don't want to butcher his age, but he is no longer with us because there was a police shooting that took place. He did not make it, and there's video footage, body camera footage of Kim Potter arriving to the scene, telling the other officers to immediately turn your body camera footage off, go to the car, and don't speak to each other. And so that's being emerged right now. His mother is speaking out, and so that family has been asking for Kim Potter to be removed for over 2 years. That happened back in 2019. So the crocodile tears, there it is right there, the tears that she was crying that she had in the courtroom, absolutely have no sympathy for her at all. And so, you know, she's bypassed any liability, and I'm sure that if we dig a little bit deeper, there are other instances that are probably have her name attached to them. So it's time for her to do the time for the crimes that she's committed.
You know, I hear what you're saying when you talked about what happened a couple of years ago in that incident, but at the same time, we saw what happened with Derek Chauvin. We all witnessed what happened. The world saw that. No need for him to get up there. Kyle Rittenhouse, people witnessed that as well. But once he got up there, we saw what the outcome was. We saw the difference.
It was
we
the
saw the
turning point.
emotions, the turning point. So if I'm the defense, I'm going to go with that blueprint, especially in her case, because some people are looking at maybe she did make a mistake. Yes, she's been on the force for over 20 years, but this could have been an innocent mistake. It was a heat of the moment. Plus, the defense is trying to put the blame on my man Daunte Wright, and which they have no right to do that. We understand it was a situation. We understand that, you know, he was scared. He wanted to get away, however they want to word that. But they're trying to turn it around. But I say all that to say this. Do I feel like she should do some time? Absolutely. Do I think it's the whole 15 years? No. So now we have on one hand where Demi's like, yo, based on her past and her track record, this probably was intentional, maybe. But from my outside looking in, I'm thinking she may do little time, if any.
Yeah, it's looking like, you know, like I said, she faces up to 15 years in prison, but even if convicted of the most serious charges, typically for someone with her lack of criminal record, it's looking like 7 years in prison, 7.5 years in prison. And you're right, you bring up the differences in Derek Chauvin's case. I think it was harder for the defense to prove, hey, to argue this was a mistake, because it lasted so long. And there were so many opportunities to rectify that mistake. This is different. I'm not saying it's different because of what happened. I'm saying that she's saying I made one quick mistake. That's different than I had my knee on his neck for 9 minutes. It's a harder argument to make, but the thing is, somebody died. Someone died in both instances, and all of this comes back to one, traffic stops, right? And traffic stops, why they are so deadly for civilians, oftentimes also for police. And you know, what needs to change moving forward? Because again, this was a traffic stop.
Right. Well, I think for expired plates, I believe.
Expired tags or something hanging in the windshield, yeah.
Which is something they said they weren't going to do during COVID because they had other things going on. So they were like, you know what, we're going to let that go.
Right.
And they did not, and a life was lost.
And, you know, and that's a bigger argument that I think has been made this entire time. And so, you know, many activists are saying, hey, listen, stop saying this was about the tags because they weren't supposed to stop for tags. You need to be honest and say that this was about what the driver looked like. And they want the change. They feel like the change can't happen until that's acknowledged. And, you know, it's an important conversation, at least, to listen to everyone involved.
Definitely.
And that's why it's so frustrating when we hear on one hand Kim Potter saying, I made a mistake, but then you have one of the testimonies that really grinded my gears, an attorney for her that says, like you said, Romeo, Daunte Wright caused the whole incident by trying to flee from police during a traffic stop. So that leads me in the middle. Was it Daunte Wright's fault? Are you saying it's his fault? Or are you saying you made a mistake? It doesn't seem like it's evening up. So, again, do some time for the crime.
We will definitely keep you posted. Let's jump into our COVID-19 updates. Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey is added to the list of high-profile names of those who have tested positive for COVID-19 amongst the late winter surge propelled by a new variant of the virus. After seeing a spike in cases from the Delta variant and Omicron variant has shown even higher infection rates that have again begun overwhelming hospitals across the nation. CNN says the country as a whole reached an average 126,967 new cases per day on Saturday, a stunning increase from the just more than 70,000 new cases on average per day at the beginning of November. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and Representative Jason Crow of Colorado are among other lawmakers who have also been infected recently. And this is happening, and we do know they both have their shots, their boosters. So we're saying all this to let you know one thing. COVID is coming back with another major surge through the holidays, with people getting together, with people traveling, with the weather, more people being indoors. You know, even me got tested when I returned back from St. Louis because, you know, I was on a crowded flight. And hey, I have both of my shots. My boosters due next month, but I want to make sure I'm safe and you all are safe as well. So important. But I hope no one tries to use this against them on the political side, because we all know that Donald Trump was just at a rally and he mentioned he had the booster, right? And everyone applaud. They didn't applaud. They booed him.
Right?
They booed him. And I'm like, here's a man that had the blueprint at the beginning of this pandemic, failed to use it, and if he would have, it could have saved so many lives. We know that. You talk to the science, they would tell you that if we had better precaution, been better prepared, and he did not do that. So, you know, we know this is out there, the numbers are going up, and we just have to be careful.
I saw this meme over the weekend that said all of the vaccinated people are mad because they got played. And so that means like everyone who got vaccinated, we're feeling like, oh my God, I almost said Omicron is taking over the world. And so why do we get vaccinated? And so Romeo, you said the science, and going back to the science, there's nowhere in the science that says you cannot test positive for COVID-19. And even in Cory Booker's announcement, he reminded his followers that it would have been even worse if he didn't have 2 doses of the vaccine. And just a quick statistic for you here. We are, of course, like you know, seeing a surge in COVID-19 nationwide, but the daily national average is at 120,000 cases per day. So whether you're vaccinated or not, you know, COVID-19 is absolutely still very relevant and prevalent in our everyday lives. And so it doesn't matter about vaccine or not. You need to protect yourself as many ways as you possibly can.
Yeah, you definitely do.
Yeah, I'm looking at CDC data. So CDC data, this showing by COVID-19, depending on vaccine status, right? So 451 cases per 100,000 people for unvaccinated, 134 cases per 100,000 people for vaccinated, 48 cases per 100,000 people for boosted. Unvaccinated, 6.1 deaths per 100,000. Vaccinated, 0.5 deaths, so less than 1% per 100,000. Boosted, 0.1 deaths per 100,000. And so vaccinated people didn't get played. The science has always been the same. Getting vaccinated does not mean that you 100% have 0 chance of getting it, but your chances, the risk goes down completely. And it's also, listen, and I'm vaccinated and I still don't want to get COVID. I'm seeing stories about people with mild cases, and typically mild cases mean people don't go to the hospital.
Yeah.
That's a low bar, right? It's a fairly low bar of things that I don't want to get sick. I don't want to have long COVID. This is terrifying me. I don't want to lose my sense of taste, my sense of smell. And so there are small things like when people are talking about what could happen to you that aren't even discussed because there's such a focus on who goes to the hospital, right? And so, yeah, getting vaccinated is the safest thing to do. It's the best. There are tools out there to protect yourself. But with that said, there's a lot of frustration that I've been seeing because of a White House memo, a White House messaging that has come out. And people feel like, a lot of people, I can't say people, all people, but a lot of people are frustrated, feeling like the administration is skirting the systemic issues at hand and placing this on an individual basis. And so just going to read part of the memo. It says, you know, we are, and you can find this on whitehouse.gov, we are intent on not letting Omicron disrupt work and school for the vaccinated. You've done the right thing, and we will get through this. For the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death for yourselves, your families, and hospitals you may soon overwhelm. And so that is a memo that has people up in arms. They're frustrated because they you know, I think the worry overall is that the unvaccinated, it affects the vaccinated. So it's not simply a, hey, this bad thing will happen to you.
No, it affects everyone.
It affects everyone. And so I'm seeing a lot of conversation where people are wanting this to be tackled as a systemic issue, not necessarily only, hey, an individual issue. If the individuals do this, then everything will be fine. They're wanting the government to kind of tackle this as a whole. And I don't know what's next, because looking at some of these numbers right now, it is alarming. It's alarming. You see people joking about like, oh, there are what, I know we're going to talk about it in a second, but there are 4 NFL games today on the Tuesday.
Yeah.
I mean, tomorrow, excuse me, tomorrow on a Tuesday.
2 games today. Yeah, 4 teams
right.
playing today.
Yeah, like there's just, you know.
And I just want to say this real quick. If you're not vaccinated, soulmates, there's a 20 to 30 times more often or more likely to get the pandemic, right? To get coronavirus. And another thing on top of that is people are out there saying that I'm not going to get vaccinated at all. I know people that still refuse to get vaccinated. You all may know some as well. I try to say, look, man, this is not going away anytime soon. Do not do damage to yourself or your family refusing to be vaccinated.
So we actually have more COVID-19 news for you as it relates to sports. The Omicron variant's infection rate has also heavily affected the NBA, as Brooke told you, as well as the NFL and the NHL, causing them to cancel or postpone games in the upcoming weeks. Over 100 NFL players have tested positive in the last few weeks, and over 40 NBA players in that same time span. The NFL has placed all 32 teams in intensive COVID-19 protocols. The NBA has enhanced their health and safety protocols, including increased testing and mask policies. The NHL has also canceled several games through the Christmas break. So there was a story yesterday that broke about the NBA announcing new rules for teams who are losing players to COVID-19. So the new rule is pretty much for every player lost. So if, say, 5 players are lost for a team, that team has the opportunity to get 5 replacement players to add to their roster. This is going to be in effect till January 19th. And so the cool thing about this is that there's going to be some players that, one, are maybe on the team that are going to get some more play time, and also some players are going to get new opportunities as well. So, I mean, if not necessarily a light at the end of the tunnel, but I thought it was kind of interesting that if up to 8 players, some teams are getting up to 8 players that can come in and be like a replacement player right now. So, I mean, this is a good time. You know, some other players can come in and kind of show what they're made of and maybe have a new opportunity on their hands as a result of this.
Well, I do know some of the NHL games are not even going to happen. If you have to go over across the border into Canada, they're not there for it. It's like, look, we're going to fall back. We're not going to do anything, I think, for next week or so. So they're going to do that. You know, Draymond Green also went public, excuse me, and he made a statement. I want to know what you guys think about that. He said, look, I trust the scientists, right? I'm vaccinated, I have my booster, but I refuse not to live my life. I want to go out. I'm not going to go and wild out and do crazy things. I'll mask up when needed. But he's saying the fact is that I am vaccinated and that I have my booster. I shouldn't have to be forced to stay in my room. And he does understand what kind of repercussions can happen if he does test positive, right? We see what's happening to some of these teams. You're going to take some L's if you don't have your starters there. So I don't know how you guys feel about him going public and saying that. Is that a good thing?
Oh, I just remember he was supporting an unvaccinated player months ago, saying that's his choice. You don't know. We don't ask this. We don't ask that. It wasn't like full-throated support of the science. And he's allowed, this is a grown man who is allowed to say whatever he feels. But the two statements don't really match up.
Yeah.
The biggest problem, Romeo, is that the players and the teams and the fans end up losing the most because it's hard to build back the chemistry. I forgot which coach it was for what team it was that was saying it's hard to build back the chemistry. Say if 3 of your star players are out, and yeah, we have replacement players, you have people who are off the bench that get a chance to come in and play in their plays, but it's hard to build that chemistry that the fans are used to seeing, that the coaches are used to seeing, and the team ends up suffering at the end of the day. So it's not like we're talking about an average person, like, you know, that's like, oh, you know what, I'm vaccinated. I work not to call it a person who works a 9 to 5 because I work a 9 to 5, but I'll say myself, I'm an average person, right? I can say like, okay, I want to live my life and I can just have 2 weeks off now. No, you are a celebrity. You are an inspiration to people. You change people's lives. Romeo, I don't think that he has the same space to be able to just be reckless with his words like that. He should have more, a PR person or someone should be telling him like, no, you need to be more so, I'm vaccinated and I'm going to trust the science and make sure I protect my family and make sure the fans are good as well at the end of the day.
Yeah, some applauded what he said, some were against it. And at the end of the day, if you're a fan out there that's working that hard 9 to 5 and you spend $100 for tickets and you go to see a game, let's just say Christmas Day, Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets, and the stars aren't playing, that's a loss for the fans.
Absolutely.
In a way. You know what I mean? It really is. You bought your tickets, so that team is still going to make their money. You're going to buy refreshments. That stadium is still going to make their money, but you as a fan may walk away just a little dissatisfied. So that's why I feel if you're in the league or if you're doing something on this level, you have to make sure you're healthy and you can play. Do it for yourself, for your family, and for the fans too.
It's just been so, like, you know, they'll postpone a game because of one team's outbreak, and then by the time they get to like nearing up to the rescheduled date, the other team is dealing with an outbreak. And it, you know, yeah, there's so much going on. There's so much going on. Yes, people want to play. Players want to play. People, of course, fans. Listen, what the fans want to do, I get it. You paid your money for it. But when people's lives and people's jobs, I think, and people's actual livelihoods and health, that's more important. So I know it's frustrating to say, but like as a fan, I feel like you don't have much say in this, even though you've purchased a ticket. I just feel like I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm focused on the players, right? The players and the coaches and the staff there. And so, yeah, they want to play. They want to be able to play. They don't want to have to deal with an outbreak on their that, you know, maybe they wouldn't have dealt with had they gotten to play on the correct day. But there's so much going on because you also don't want to play a team dealing with an outbreak. And so I don't.
But should they come to that executive decision saying, you know what, let's shut down all sports for about 3 weeks or a month?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why everyone here in Los Angeles, when Russell Westbrook got COVID-19, everyone in LA was just like, hey, we want Russell Westbrook on the team. We don't want a team without Russell. We don't want a team without the star player. So why can't we just shut everything down? Brooke, great point. Who wants to play against a team who recently came out of COVID-19 protocol a day before, just because, you know what I mean? Like, who's going to feel comfortable like that? The NBA did such a great job with the bubble that I don't understand why it's such a big deal. Like, 2 weeks is not gonna kill us. If we would have did this 2 weeks ago and then resumed games around Christmas, we would have been back in the clear, I feel like. But now you have the Chicago Bulls was out they were the first team that kind of like kicked off all of it. Then you have other teams, so it's like this domino effect all over the place that it's really never feels like it's ever going to go away when you give each individual team their own set of rules.
It's 100% about money. But then it's also like, listen, if you're supposed to be off after an intense season, if you're supposed to be off on this day or start playoffs on this day or what, like, you don't want to extend this 3 weeks either. It's all, but like, it's a lot, yeah. President Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan, it appears to be dead right now. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia came out over the weekend, announced he would be voting against it. It was a pretty noticeable split from the majority of his Democratic peers. The decision has caused massive backlash from progressives in Congress. AOC on MSNBC this morning, Joe Manchin, of course, on Fox News over the weekend. The White House itself saying the move from Manchin is a surprise and was not conducive to the unified party identity they are trying to portray. You may have all seen a viral video of Vice President Kamala Harris and Charlemagne over the weekend, but there was something that she said that I think some people are focusing on. If you take everything else that happened in the video, she did kind of point out that the Build Back Better plan, just as it sets, it has an aim of ending Black child poverty by 50%. And so when you put it that way, and then you see that Senator Manchin says, I won't vote for this, that's a little confusing for people. Also, West Virginia, pretty low on the list of many of the things that they're hoping to fix in the Build Back Better agenda, right? And saying that, hey, I can't take, as this stands, I can't take this back to my state. Some of the polls about the plan seem to state that the people in his state want that. And then on top of that, a massive report coming out of the Huffington Post this morning with some things that Joe Manchin has supposedly said about this plan. I'll wrap it up. I want to bring everybody else in, but we'll come back around to that. But it's not looking good. I'm not seeing how there's going to be a switch on this, how there's going to be a flip where all of a sudden this is going to pass. And it's not making anybody look great right now.
Romy,
can I just say also before I stop, I know I said I was going to stop, but you know me. There's a lot of attention being paid to Joe Manchin. And listen, if you are a Democrat, as someone who is for the Build Back Better plan, if you're a Democrat, you're frustrated. He's also the 51st senator saying that he's not voting against this. There are 50 other senators, the entire GOP saying, hey, we're not voting for this. So that matters too.
Brooke, when you said, I was so shocked when he said that he couldn't bring it back to West Virginia, because I can't imagine that every single person in West Virginia, like you're saying, is against this. And clearly you have a statistic that proves that. So back to what you were saying about what VP Kamala Harris said about child poverty. The child tax credit is the biggest, and what I've been reading is one of the biggest sticking points as to why Manchin is not signing on to this. Like we said, he said he can't bring it back to West Virginia because the child tax credit, as it stands right now, it gives $300 a month per child. It's going to end at the end of the year unless Congress extends it, and the Build Back Better plan. That was one thing that it was going to help, because also think about with the Omicron surge right now, a lot of people are going to have to go back to shutdowns and quarantines, and so they're going to need funding. They're going to need help. They're going to be back home, not being able to work. Jobs are going to be shutting down. We're going backwards right now, and so that extra $300 at the end, going into 2022, is going to help a lot of families. And so at the end of the day, Black families, we are bearing the brunt, and we lose the most out of this not going all the way through.
Yeah, we talk about people needing money for the last year. We talked about that, people possibly losing their homes or being evicted. There's a lot of things going on that we want them to get right going into 2022. But I say this, if we're on the same team, Democrats, why all this has to be so much out in the open? Like, if there's some issues, why can't you solve it behind the scene? Because you show people what's really going on within your party. And the other side is going to take advantage. They're going to use it to their leverage. See, they don't have it together. Excuse me. This is why we need to take over the House and the Senate, because Democrats don't know how to run it. I hate hearing that conversation, but it's kind of hard not to hear it when you continue to see people on the same side. Look, they're not going to agree on everything. I don't think any of them is going to totally agree on front to back for this bill, right? But if we're on the same team, we got to take a bite somewhere and say, okay, we'll make it happen.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's a good point. But the thing is, the fact of the matter is, right, is that everyone pretty much knew what was going on. The fact that this hasn't come up for a vote, the fact that we're still talking about this, everyone knew that the Dems didn't have the numbers, that they were still working on some of their own. But him coming out over the weekend and essentially ending talks on live television, I would like to know what the decision-making process behind that was, what the benefit of that, what frustrated him to that point. I'm sure the president is interested in that, too. I want to go back to those comments I was telling you about. So HuffPost is reporting that basically Senator Manchin had been complaining for several months that he worried that people would misuse these funds. And so, you know, keep that in mind, where we are right now financially, where we are in the pandemic. And just on one note, obviously these are not the same, but on one hand, the child tax credit is ending, right as student loans repayments are beginning. And so, but he says, according to this report, that he's told several of his fellow Democrats that he thought parents would waste monthly child tax credit payments on drugs instead of providing for their children. Also, telling colleagues he believes that Americans would fraudulently use the proposed paid sick leave policy, specifically saying people would feign being sick and go on hunting trips. The Huffington Post is saying, this is according to a source familiar with his comments, and of course that brings a lot of people back to decades ago and the welfare queen trope. Which, again, it turns out when you actually look at the numbers, when you looked at the numbers back then, that was just completely, it wasn't a thing. It wasn't reality. But these comments, he's going to have to respond to these comments at the very least, because they're alarming many people right now.